everybody. Welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. We're on our side quest right now, taking a look at all the best picture nominees from 2021, 2022. It's the 2 calendar year, and we are talking about Don't Look Up today, directed by Adam McKay. Pretty humongous cast in this film: Leonardo DiCaprio, J-Lo, Meryl Streep, among others. It's a big...
Not J-Lo, different J.
J-Law.
J-Law. There you go.
I made that joke on Twitter with Kylie the other night. Let's not get them confused.
We are going to be talking about this film. Are we team look up or are we team don't look up? Who knows? We're going to figure that out through the course of talking about the film. But little housekeeping from last time we talked about Nightmare Alley. We're pretty divided about it actually, when it came to ranking. Got a score of 7.6, put it at place number 2 on the list, below Power of the Dog. So will Don't Look Up go above either of those films, or will it go at the bottom? Who knows? We have to figure that out. Are you guys ready to talk about the film? Anyone want to start?
Fun fact, we actually did get a Power of the Dog comment. We're on sort of a double recording cycle here, so we're 2 behind in terms of rating featured comments. But that does mean that I will read comments when we get them. And this comes from John Tour 11, who says, I didn't like this as much as you guys. Every character seems so cold to me, except for Bronco Henry, of course. 6.5 out of 10 for him on Power of the Dog. So
Bronco Henry, famously nice and warm, nice to cuddle up in.
Yeah.
Nice to cuddle up with on a cold winter's night on the
He'll save
mountain.
your life.
Oh, that's the joke. I just got... Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a little explanation. And I think I need a little explanation for what the plot is of this movie. Someone want to tackle the synopsis? Most people probably have heard of it, because this is this movie was making waves, to put it lightly.
Mm-hmm. There's an asteroid of a film. Abram, go
tsunamis.
ahead. You don't
All
often
around the
do a
world.
plot synopsis, so Abram,
Magnitude
please.
10 earthquakes. That's what Don't Look Up was causing.
I'm not much of a plot synopsis expert here, as I'm already screwing it up here on my debut effort in our side quest series of plot synopses, but I'll give it a shot here. There's an asteroid coming to Earth, and people are upset about it.
Or not.
And in 2 hours and 18 minutes, Adam McKay takes us through this tapestry of biting commentary about how the media and the government and the working man all react to this very obvious but also very muddled COVID, climate change, political polarization allegory that ends with the Earth as we know it being destroyed. And that's basically what happens in Don't Look Up.
Save only for Jonah Hill, of course.
Somehow.
Is the last man on
That's
Earth.
true, yeah. I didn't... When I watched this the first time, I did not... Believe it or not, I didn't stay for like the after credits for Don't Look Up. No, because I didn't think there would be an after credits for this. But yeah, Jonah Hill survives. He's streaming to no one. He's like, "Hey, I'm the last man on Earth. What's up?" Very weird.
God,
Very
it's so funny, huh?
Ha ha. What did you guys think of this film?
Should I start? Should I come out the gate here?
You should start, Tanner. You should.
Okay.
Hit me with your meteor of a take, man.
Okay. No, I wasn't sure which way to approach reviewing this film, because I have lots of feelings about Don't Look Up, mostly negative. As I sort of spoiled at the end of our last episode, I really don't like this film. And Adam McKay, if you're watching, it's not because I don't believe in climate change. I think it's because you made a really bad movie that has some good or passable things, sort of circling around it in its orbit, mayhaps. But at its heart,
maybe out in the Oort cloud.
Yeah, out in the Oort cloud. Yeah, those good things are way out in the Oort cloud. But at its heart, this movie is dead and cold to me. I think Adam McKay really missed the mark here with whatever satire, with whatever commentary he's trying to make, and I'll get into this further. But I think it's just really out of touch. I think it was DOA for me, because he tries so hard to make it topical and yet still misses the point on like every single little jab he tries to throw in there. And to me, the end product is just Adam McKay proselytizing about how smart he is. I am like Leonardo DiCaprio. I am like Jennifer Lawrence, and all these other people, all the idiots that I see on Twitter every day. They're like Meryl Streep, and they're like Jonah Hill. They don't believe in the comment of climate change. Most movies about climate change, but I do. I'm the smart guy. I directed this movie, and it got all the famous people in it. Give me my Oscar, please. That's what this movie feels like to me.
See, Tanner, I disagree there because we're not like Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep is like Donald Trump.
What?
I'm not sure if you. I'm not
Wait a
sure
second.
if you picked up on that.
I didn't really catch that.
What
actually.
a blunder, Tanner. How could you not have
Oh,
realized that Meryl Streep
God.
was supposed to be Donald Trump?
Fool of fools, am I?
Here's what I'll say about the movie. In traditional Abram Buner fashion, I didn't really know what it was about, but I knew this was my second viewing of the film, and before my first, I knew two things acutely. One, that I
Okay.
loved The Big Short, and two,
Agreed.
Jennifer Lawrence was on the other side of this window right here, because some of this movie was filmed on my college campus during our winter break. Jennifer Lawrence was here. She was running on the path that I
Did she
walk
leave a
every
little
day.
graffiti saying J-Law was here?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
well, the reason I
Well,
mentioned
she
this,
said J-Lo was
WUZ.
here.
she not only did she run the path that I walk to breakfast every morning, but in an interview, she said she was at some liberal arts college in Massachusetts.
Ah, yeah, of course.
Oh my God.
Because our college is notoriously known in Hollywood for being the one that looks like Harvard if you have a tight enough shot, but we don't charge what Harvard charges.
How about that?
But so after my first viewing of Don't Look Up, I had a very interesting experience because I thought the movie was terrible. But my parents thought the movie was absolutely profound, literally. And then I didn't think about the movie at all. I came back to it this afternoon, paid far less attention to it the first time, and enjoyed it a lot more. But here's the thing. I still maintain that this is a very bad movie, but on a second watch, I found something a little bit more endearing about it. And I think what that is for me is Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think near single-handedly makes this movie watchable. I think he takes a script that is so, as you were saying, Tanner, poorly aimed, and makes it funny. I think a lot of the other members of the cast kind of are so thick in their performances that they just become unwatchable for me. But I think Leo does something quite special with his role that at least kept me more compelled than the first time, because I was really dreading watching this twice.
Sure.
I was absolutely dreading watching this twice and dreading talking about it on Quest. This movie was notorious between especially you, Abram, you, Tanner, and me. We had a long conversation about how much we hated this movie after we saw it, and we talked to my dad, who also didn't like it. But this movie has been divisive. It is not categorically put into the camp that we started with.
No.
Holy shit, this is terrible. Oh my god, this most on-those thing. There are people like Abram parents, and apparently a lot of the members of the Academy, who think this movie is great and love the cast and love the idea of picking fun at everyone. And I thought that they were ridiculous, honestly. When we come out of that first viewing, me and my dad are sitting there like, what did we just watch? How did Adam McKay mess us up so badly? So when I'm coming into the second watch, ready to tear us under on Quest, but then I'm watching the movie and I'm like, no, kind of having a good time. Oh, actually, the comedy's working a lot better. Oh, actually, I'm kind of understanding the themes a little bit more. I actually think this movie's not that bad. I completely 180, not entirely, like I'm not giving this a 5 out of 5, but I completely 180 my tune on this film for my second watching. And I think solely because I knew what to expect going in. I was excited to get to the sequence where Ron Perlman gets in the rocket and goes to space. I was excited to see Mark Rylance show up on stage and do his dumb fucking Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk impression. I was excited these are things because I had hated them so much the first time. It was actually fun to watch them, and I was better able to understand the tone and comedy and themes that Adam McKay was going for. So I don't think this is the best way to tell this story. I don't think it is the best way to edit it. There's a lot of elements of this film that knock it down. But I see what he's going for, and this time I actually quite enjoyed a lot of it.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that from the Mr. Tucker here.
No, yeah.
My,
I'm a bag of magic tricks over here.
My thoughts echo a lot of what Tanner and Abram are talking about. I don't like this movie. I think that, oh my God, it's so heavy-handed. Like, where is my subtleism? Where is it? And ultimately, I don't think that's necessarily the fault of this film because I don't like Adam McKay's other work. I really, really hate Vice. I think I still hate Vice more than I hate this movie. Because I feel like this one, despite its just, its handling of its own thematic material, it doesn't play dumb to me like Vice did. And it feels a little less frivolous. To me, there's a lot of frivolosity, if that's a word, going on in this movie. I'm just gonna say it. I just hate the stock footage. Come on, it bugs me. It irks me, and I know it's not super central to the film, but it's present. It comes up, and every time I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm watching an Adam McKay movie.
Is that something you used in his previous films? I don't quite remember that.
Here's the thing. I'll answer your question because I will. In Adam McKay's other films, his new oeuvre of films, that being The Big Short and Vice, those films, and this is also partially my follow-up statement. Those films are pointed about what they are criticizing in their subject material. The Big Short is about the 2008 financial crisis and what happened with the rating agencies for housing, with the banks giving out loans, with the people who are selling these homes. That is the target of the Big Short. Vice is about Bush-era politics. How Dick Cheney specifically, even though it's called the Bush era, how Dick Cheney specifically used, the mid-2000s and like 9/11 and things of that nature, and the war in Iraq and Afghanistan to transform Washington D.C. It's about Dick Cheney. It's about the other politicians in Washington D.C. at the time. And those films, in their pointed commentary, in their pointed critiques of these institutions and these people, use stock footage more as a documentary, in a documentarian sense. Sure. We get, real footage of Wall Street on whatever in 2008 or whatever, and we also get little cutaways of like Margot Robbie and Anthony Bourdain and Selena Gomez. In Vice, we get real footage of like the war in Iraq. We get real footage of like I forget what some of the other things are, but he uses the government stuff, and I think we get like actual footage of like Donald Rumsfeld and stuff like that, who's portrayed by Steve Carell in the film. But in this, Adam McKay sort of strays away from that style. He strays away from it in not being especially pointed in what he's critiquing. In this, he's critiquing the media and the government and the internet, big tech companies, the average person on the internet. Okay, he's just pointing a gun at everyone and saying, "I'm smarter than all of these people, and you guys don't understand it, and you're all stupid, but I get it. I'm Adam McKay." And he still tries to use that stock footage stuff, but it feels more superfluous in the fact that, like, okay, I'm looking at stock footage of people in India with a Buddha statue and a gecko peeling off its molted skin. Like, what does this mean? What purpose does this serve? I understand we're on Earth, and I understand there's lots of people on Earth.
Well, this film takes place on Earth.
You don't need to explain like the inner workings of like 2002 Washington D.C. or the 2008 financial crisis to me. I get what's going on here.
It's funny you both say this because, first of all, Tanner, I'm always pleased to see hippo footage in any movie that I'm watching.
I failed to consider that.
The hippo factor.
On my second viewing, I noticed two things happening. To Tucker's point, I did enjoy it more the second time in certain key respects I want to talk about. I found the plot to be a lot less egregious than I did the first time. But I found the editing to be even worse. I think it is the technical hand that assembled this movie that totally kills it for me. Whether it is that stock footage or most infuriating to me is when they try to parallel edit scenes together.
Yeah, that usually doesn't work.
And we're jumping back and forth between Meryl Streep, Donald Trump giving the address about doing the mission, then we're cutting back into the Oval Office as we're explaining the script as we're going to tell it on stage, and we're jumping back and forth. I think this movie is edited and shot really poorly, frankly. And that was the nail in the coffin for me in the second viewing.
What I noticed the second time around just was how fast. I mean, they don't let any shots linger. It's boom, 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 cut, cut, cut. And in a Best Picture winner, we don't normally get that. That's kind of normal for, like, not normal pictures, but like blockbusters and stuff like that get a lot of fast.
The people's pictures.
the little the whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. I have no room to breathe. I have no room to internalize what's going on to me, and he's showing a lot. And so I'm like, let me figure it out. Let me figure it out for myself for a little bit before you tell me.
The way it's shot and the way it's edited is also a big issue for me. You know, he doesn't let anything breathe. You know, because even in like shots that aren't supposed to be like super tense or whatever, he still has the camera in the actor's face with, you know, very, very shallow depth of field. You know, is that the right word? Everything behind them, the actor is blurry. We're getting like a portion of their face, and there's like camera shake and stuff like that. Like, Adam McKay, just chill out. We're having dinner right now, okay? We don't need to be in this person's face, okay?
It's a very strong direction and style. I agree with you. I don't think it's a good style. It personally is a huge turnoff to me to especially have whoever is doing the cinematography for this fucking movie has twitchy fingers for the focus dial, and they're just going whoa, whoa,
yeah,
and it gets really unnerving, and that combined with shots having incredibly shallow depth of field and editing very quickly, it can be disorienting. I don't think that is categorically a terrible thing, and obviously not everyone agrees with you because this movie got nominated for best fucking editing, and I'm not saying it should have been.
No.
I think it's interesting that they lean so heavily into a style that is obviously alienating, but I didn't mind it as much on this second watch, and I can see what he's going for in this sort of the world's moving so fast that you don't have time to keep up mentally sort of oeuvre of someone's finishing a sentence and boom, we're on to another scene. Like they'll cut someone off 75% of the way through a word, and usually that's really annoying, but in some instances I found it to be a way to keep you engaged in this and put you in the minds of the characters who are really overwhelmed. I can see the style he's going for. Not saying that I liked it most of the time, and the documentary footage is another weird balance where I know what he's going for. He's going for, this is Earth, these are the beautiful things that we're not paying attention to, this is what we have that we're risking losing if we don't pay attention to this problem. But also, it comes at the most inopportune times, and we'll just be in the middle of the scene, it's like, birds, and people having sex, and babies in the bathtub, and it's like, these don't have anything to actually do with what we're talking about.
I think another issue on a macro level that isn't just how Adam McKay edits things in a scene is how he edits things between scenes, because he really uses that stuff as a crutch when he doesn't know how to do a scene transition. He's like, oh shucks, well, how do I transition from this scene to the next scene? Baby elephants, the ocean, Mount Everest. I don't know. Show some like cars or something like that. I don't know. It just really shows me that like he thought he was going for something, or maybe it was just sort of, you know, uncomfortable going from scene to scene in the editing process. I do want to quickly, I'll just get these out of the way because, as Tucker said, this was nominated for Best Editing. I'll do the nominees right here. Nominated for Best Picture, obviously. Also nominated for Best Original Score and Best Original Screenplay.
So not that many, really.
No, 4 nominees. It's 4 nominations.
Here's my problem, because Tucker, I totally agree with you that there is an intent to what is happening here.
Yeah.
I just think it's a misguided intent, because one of the things...
I don't disagree.
Right. Mm-hmm. But one of the things my parents said, actually, was that it does an amazing job capturing the way that our world moves and operates.
Sure.
And I do think that's true. To be fair, I think that the ridiculous editing and the OnlyFans comments, jokes, and the like dissolves between all this stuff and cutting between news anchors and everything, I get what he's going for. But this is a movie that has so little to say about what it's presenting, that it feels like, and this is something I think we were talking to your dad about, Tucker, it feels like the movie is meant for you as a viewer to feel some sort of white upper class catharsis of sitting in your home, sipping your wine, and going to your wife saying, Yep, snapping along to the movie. It's a movie you're supposed to snap to. And that's something I really don't like, because it just takes so much for granted of, this is the world, and it is, but now you're going to feel the way about it because I'm presenting these things to you. Not that I'm going to have a subtle, nuanced, and compelling satire to make. but here's an image that evokes something you know. You feel a way about it, so feel that here. It's just a sensory overload that has no artistic through line to it.
Which might be why so many people who like actually don't believe in climate change are so outraged by the film, because it doesn't push you to, it doesn't like say, oh, here are some things to think about this meteor crashing and how we all react to it. It's like, here's CNN. What do you think of that? Here's Donald Trump. What do you think of that? Here's like this extraordinarily thinly veiled allegory. Take what you already think and now think it in the context of the film and get angry at either the characters or at McKay for bringing up the subject that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, it's really funny to me that this movie covers so much. I think that's both, in some ways its strength, in some ways its weakness. It's entirely opposite, as Tanner was saying, of how pointed McKay's other political works, satires kind of, maybe not, were very focused on this one thing. I do think that on this second watch and through listening to some, which I hadn't done this before until like today, listening to some positive reviews of Don't Look Up, saying what other people were sort of finding in it, I think there is an interesting concept to the theme, which I believe is the central theme of this film. What Adam McKay was going for is that we are all to blame, like every group is to blame, in part, for the insanity of our world. And it's not showing the full picture if you just focus on one group. It's a nihilistic approach to theming. It's a confusing approach to, okay, that means we can't necessarily focus on one thing. But I think there is an idea of us as humanity on this planet. Every group is to blame in some part, whether that's they're denying certain things or they're not communicating properly. Everyone has a problem, and that all together is what's causing this issue. It's not any one group that is solely making this a problem. And I think it's difficult to think about because that is so large scale, but that is clearly what it's going for. And I think there is something to be gleaned from that, something to think about. This isn't as thematically void as I saw it the first time. I don't think it's as dumb. Like, I don't think Adam McKay was as ridiculous and dumb when he was writing this as we were kind of assuming on our first pass, because he is an experienced screenwriter. He has experienced actors. I think he knows what he's going for. It's just really hard for people to connect to this such a grand theme of humanity is the problem. But that's true. And I think it's interesting to talk about that.
Here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. I was looking for the right time to drop this bomb, and Tucker, you gave me an in. Okay.
I have to take my socks off.
Okay.
Oh Lord, I activated this trap card.
Yeah, you did. Okay. I'll say it as Abrams taking off his socks. The metaphor of the comet being climate change, that is the metaphor, is a bad metaphor. It doesn't track if you think about it, because climate change isn't a thing that's like, oh my, it's coming, and it's gonna hit us. It's gonna hit us one of these days. It's gonna happen, and then we're all gonna be dead.
6 months and 14 days till climate change.
Exactly. That's not how climate change works. It is a slow process that's been happening for 20, 30, 40 years and will continue happening until humanity is dead and gone, because that is the process that we put in place. It is not a comet that is hurtling towards us that we need to just look up at to see the issue. It is a complex issue, and the reason that Tucker, I agree that people on all levels of humanity are to blame to some extent. I think that falls apart a little bit when you think about, like, there are the oil companies and manufacturers and government.
Everyone is to blame, but some people are to blame more.
But there are people who have the power to stop it and who are to blame for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where this movie loses me a little bit as well. Is that, like, it seems to in the same breath insult the president and CEOs, but also, like, look at these dumb idiots on Facebook or whatever saying don't look up. God, they're all culpable in some way, aren't they? And going back to my main point, recognizing climate change as an issue is not as simple as saying, oh, just look up. It is a complex issue that is caused by a lot of factors that a lot of people don't have the knowledge to understand. I don't understand every aspect of climate change, surely.
I took a freaking college class about this, and I barely understand it.
Mm-hmm. So Adam McKay hand waving climate change away as like a comet that's hurtling towards the planet, and everyone's just so stupid and on their phone too much to understand it, is a bad metaphor, and that's why this movie falls apart. Is because he did a 30 seconds worth of thinking and said, what can I use to represent climate change? Because climate change, he completely ignored the point when he's making this movie, when he's writing the screenplay. He's like, climate change isn't something that I can like put on a page and have a ticking clock for. And he's like, what if I made it the comet instead? And that's something that people can ignore, and I can feel better for them about it. I can feel better than them about ignoring. And that's why this movie falls apart. It's a bad metaphor at its very core. Adam McKay misunderstands the issue about which he is making the film.
See, Tanner, I think it goes deeper than that, though, because I think Adam McKay got really lucky when he wrote this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm not just talking about COVID. I'm talking about the fact that the film is so flexible in its allegory that you can deflect it off of climate change immediately if you want to, and suddenly it's about fraud in the 2020 election, right? It can be about so many things because I think that Adam McKay wrote a reductive script. That's my problem here. I think that the satire is reductive when we're going after all of these facets because, yeah, believe it or not, BLB says climate change is real, all right?
Hot take.
And the fact that Adam McKay had to run to that defense of people who are discounting the movie or discounting climate change shows that he made a critical error when writing his script, which is he did not know who his audience was. Because he did not write a film that challenges anybody. Because the people who are going to defend the film are the ones who are going to look at, as I was saying, the images presented and already have a holier-than-thou attitude about them. And the people who are going to come and shit on the film for its substance opposed to its style are not going to be swayed by this film. The smartest pieces of satire, the smartest pieces of commentary have an angle going in. But when your angle is this wide, it's so easy for stuff to just bounce off of it. And even if you're trying to...
angle.
Yeah, and this angle is at like 179 degrees, right? And if you're trying to make this tableau of American life, I get it, I suppose, but we look at something like American Beauty, which is so much more multifaceted than you might expect, as we discussed, but it still knows how to weave a through line here. I don't think that Adam McKay does when you get Timothy Chalamet shows up the house and he's throwing out his Twitch username. And here's the OnlyFans joke over here. And here's the reference to media prioritization of pop culture human interest over there. It just becomes inaccessible in how scattershot it is.
The interesting thing about that to me is that I think the film is not necessarily inaccessible because of that. I think what that is intending to do is say, hey, this can be accessible to everyone because as, you know, for an American audience, obviously, taking place in America, in English, American actors, it is for modern American people who know what Twitch is and know what OnlyFans is and remember the Donald Trump thing and all of this. I actually see the film as accessible because of that. Because it expects us to be modern Americans who know what's going on. Like, that there is a form of accessibility in there in terms of it being wide-reaching. Not saying it works in that. I cringe when Timothy Chalamet throws out his Twitch username. He's like, you game bro? I was like, no, hold on, Adam. You are not 18. That is not how people talk anymore. Please calm down. It is okay. You didn't need to say that. But I do think that the idea of having it be wide-reaching and being such a, what did you use, reductive allegory in terms of the script, I personally don't see as inherently a bad thing because frankly, when I'm watching this movie, I don't have the issues you're saying, Tanner, because I'm not watching it as a climate change allegory. Whether or not it was intended as that, Abrams' right. It can be interpreted in multiple ways. It can be a COVID allegory. It can be a 2020 election allegory. All these things. I'm watching it as a general, okay, humanity is very tense. There's always things fighting. We're always disagreeing on things. And from that lens, and the fact that it can be applied to so many different things, I think it is pretty salient as a generalized observation on the fact that humanity is crazy. And we have all these things that some people are doing. We're not communicating properly on. I found that to actually be part of the appeal of the film in the fact that it is wide-reaching and you can not think of it as a climate change thing and still get plenty out of it.
For me, the whole all of these inclusions, these cultural touchstones, just bring back the idea of this film as overwhelmingly postmodern. It's too
yeah.
postmodern for its own good. It's so everything that is brought up is with ironic tension and just ultimately, even when the film is like serious, this undertone of unseriousness about which it presents the material just makes me care less. I'm like, I mean, okay, whatever. Which is interesting because that's kind of what happens to all of America in the film. But
I also want to bring up a point of because Abram brought up the Twitch streamer thing, and I just want to note how this film in all its facets is going to age like milk because
100%. 100%. Oh my god.
Because in Tucker, I think that's an issue with what you're saying with what you said about how it can be applied to anything. Is that like sure it's a multi-purpose tool for now, but like. Will it always be? Probably not.
Sure, yeah.
And we're doing top text, bottom text memes, which aren't even a pop. Well, they are ironically a thing in 2021 now. But Adam McKay wasn't using them ironically.
Yeah.
All these things that he does reek of being written by a 45-year-old man. And it just adds to like the out of touchness of the film. Not only is it out of touch with popular culture, and it's also out of touch with the issues that it's presenting. It's out of touch in multiple ways.
I think that, see, here's the thing. I don't dislike the fact that this movie is going to age poorly. I think that's interesting.
So do I.
I like the idea of I could rewatch this when I am 65 years old, and it will be on a surface level a representation of where our life was at this point in time. I just think the problem is that it doesn't challenge anybody to think any deeper about that. Because I agree with you, Timo, that it's self-seriousness which tries to run throughout the film is equally undercut by the humor, and it almost feels like to me that Adam McKay wrote a back door for himself, wherein if I've undercut my thematic material, it was on purpose. Unless you emotionally resonated with it, then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like he has crossed so many streams here that you can put in and take out whatever you want. It has no depth to it, and that's my problem.
I'll say it. It's cowardly. It's a cowardly act of filmmaking to not come down hard on this sort of stuff. And like, if he intended it to be multi-purpose, it's different than it's a departure from Adam McKay's previous work, which I like. I haven't seen Vice since 2018, but I think it's pretty solid. I really enjoyed The Big Short, and it's in doing a scatter shot. Adam McKay is like. He's also building. It seems like he's sort of building a defense from all sides at the same time. In that pointing out everything is wrong, and this can be applied to a lot of things. He's sort of like lazily. He's hand waving is what I think it is. He's like, all this stuff is wrong, and listen, isn't this how it is, huh? Like, I don't want a movie that says that. I want something with a bit more oomph. I want something with a bit more to say than, hey, stuff's crazy. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean. Even thinking about just like one example, like, okay, the tech bro, he makes this critique of tech companies and of like this tech bro, technological solutions for everything, when maybe there's a simpler answer, or maybe there's a, that it's not a like, we already know what the solution is. I think that there's a lot to go in. I think there's an entire many films worth of thematic content and real deep discussion and thought about, well, what does that mean? What does it mean in regards to climate change? What does it mean in regards to other stuff like traffic? Why are we putting a single lane tunnel under the earth? That kind of stuff.
Why does it have LED lights?
Why is it RGB? These are not in Don't Look Up. But just like there are so many elements of that he's just saying like, the media is bad and is deflecting away from the stuff that really matters. That's like it. I don't see any deeper element in there. This tech guy is only out for money, and he's self-deluded, and kills us all as a result. Like that's okay, cool. But what's behind that? What comes more? There's more there.
Yeah.
There's more to everything that he's talking about in the film. but he never talks about the more of it.
There is no creative purpose behind the plot of any elements of the plot or the comedy in this, because I find this film pretty staggeringly unfunny. The first time I found it painfully unfunny. This time I found it boring and unfunny, because okay, you think about it, Abram, you made the joke that Meryl Streep, President Orlean or whatever, is Trump, and that's the joke. The joke is that she acts like Donald Trump and is Donald Trump in basically every single way. She has pictures with fucking Steven Seagal on her desk, and she has a nepotism hires. Her son Jonah Hill is the chief of staff. You didn't come up with any new jokes. You just changed the nouns around and thought that was funny.
He's playing Mad Libs with current culture.
Exactly. He's like, what if Trump was a woman and her son was chief of staff and she was friends with Steven Seagal, and she sent pictures of her, not penis, vagina, to a guy that was going to be on the Supreme Court or whatever. It's not creative. It is playing Mad Libs. It's just changing what is and expecting that the audience will laugh at it because that's what it is.
I want to put my final nail in the plot coffin, because I do actually want to talk about the humor and the filmic elements of the movie, believe it or not, because he didn't just write
characters and whatnot.
Yeah, he didn't just write a book, and we read that to discuss. Mm-hmm. But my last point, and because I've been trying to nail down exactly why I think this film feels so distant, is because its stakes are so unbelievably high.
Yeah,
the film does not end with the last polar ice cap melting and a continent being flooded or something, right? It ends with Jordan Peterson-esque Mark Zuckerberg's space robots didn't blow up the asteroid properly, and the Earth exploded, then Meryl Streep got eaten by a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And when you set the stakes that high, it just inherently divorces you from any of this stuff, because for as real as the movie tries to feel, it also comes across as incredibly loony to the point of absolutely no realism. Mm-hmm. The only scene that I think has some kind of an emotional driving force behind it is what I think one of the only entirely well-made scenes in the film, which is the family at dinner at the end when they're about to die, because it takes us back down to the micro for a moment. But we're so focused on the hyper macro that trying to put a face to climate change or to political hyperpolarization through an asteroid that is going to turn the Earth into fragments of an Earth that Jonah Hill is going to step out of before other people are eaten by dinosaurs, it loses any ability to connect to you as an American in this moment. So while I can understand the observational humor he's making, the laziest type of humor, by the way, it's set in a framework that takes you so far away from where we are in a movie that tries to feel so shockingly current.
Okay. And I think I do want to pivot to other elements of the film, but Abram, you brought up the Meryl Streep getting eaten by a dinosaur thing, so this is gonna be my last thing in this, and then we can go to characters and whatnot. I thought the joke there was going to be they were going to get off the spaceship and it was going to make some commentary about how the wealthiest and most important people in our society can't build a civilization on their own because they're all administrators and CEOs who
and all like 60
who have never built anything or organized anything really. But no, he goes for a cheap joke of Meryl Streep gets her face eaten. You could have put a pin in this film being and the people who ultimately will probably be the best off when climate change the real effects happen are useless in the larger sense of civilization. But no, go cheap joke. Show Meryl Streep's tramp stamp and she gets eaten. She gets her face eaten off. Whatever.
Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about some characters. I kind of want to talk about
course.
Leonardo DiCaprio because we brought him up at the beginning. As Abram, you said that he was pretty much the saving grace of the film for you, if there is a saving grace. Let's. What do you guys think of his performance as a whole? What does it do to you?
I think what's interesting about this, watching this a second time and knowing where his character is going and knowing how he fits into this larger picture, because clearly the main character, his combination with Jennifer Lawrence, the two of them lead to the film. You for the most part see the film through their eyes. You're supposed to side with them. I think what's interesting about his character and how it's written in the course of the film is that not only do I think Leo is by far the best actor in this movie, the fact that he and, for the most part, Jennifer Lawrence play it seriously. You believe that their characters would react this way. They're relatively sane people in these scenarios. Like, they're reacting in ways that make sense for human beings too. I think what's interesting about his character is that he's not a complete goody two-shoes guy. He is a relatively complex character of this scientist guy who's nerdy and kind of shy, but does have this he's able to blossom kind of into this the nation's sexiest scientist who cheats on his
elf.
wife.
AILF, Tucker.
Yeah, exactly. And becomes like wrapped up in this to the point where he is siding with Meryl Streep's character and is cheating on his wife. Like, he's a pretty complicated character, and I think I like the fact that he's not one note. He's got these multiple sides of, he's obviously a good guy with a good heart, but he can be corrupted very easily by the power and the fame and all of that.
You're right. He does have a character arc in this, and that is good. He has a character flaw that I think is good, especially for him and Jennifer Lawrence are sort of the Adam McKay smarter than everyone insert characters. Jennifer Lawrence doesn't really have a character flaw or an arc of any sort to be found, I think.
Well,
but
I mean, the flaw is that she gets too passionate sometimes, and that causes other people to distance from her. Like, she doesn't listen. Like, that is a character flaw. Like, she overreacts in a couple of situations, and that takes power away from her argument because people start memeing her.
The point is that she doesn't overreact. The point is that she is reacting at a regular, at a understandable level. That she's screaming at people that the planet is going to explode, and that's what we should all be doing.
Yeah, I know, but
that's what Adam McKay is doing with the movie.
In the context of this film, because she gets punished for it multiple times.
But the people are wrong for punishing her for it, is the thing.
So?
The government... What? Well, it's not a flaw then. If the people punishing her are wrong, then it's not a flaw. It's a benefit to her character.
It causes people to react to her in different ways, and it shows different parts of her character.
Yeah, but we're supposed to know that... We're getting wrapped up here. We're supposed to know that she is reacting in correct ways. So it's not a flaw that she's screaming on national television, because that is the correct thing to do, right?
No, I'm in alignment with Tanner here. She is reacting how the film like establishes her as correct, and so I don't necessarily see that as a flaw because the film is supporting her in that. It punishes her for that because the rest of the film has it's the place for her character to be punished, but her being like that isn't, I think, like a character flaw at all.
But the thing is that the reason that's a flaw is because she is a person who's supposed to be presenting this as a problem and get it communicated to people. Obviously, she's not media trained for that and that kind of stuff, so it kind of makes sense that she reacts in these ways. But the ways that she reacts and blows out of proportion in multiple scenarios actively takes away power from them communicating this properly to the masses. Like, we if she was the perfect character for this job, she would be able to stay level-headed and communicate it properly. But she's not.
But here's the thing. Okay, Abram, you can go ahead.
I gotta say, I'm with Tanner and Timo on this one. I think the function of Jennifer Lawrence's character is to point out the flaw in the society, not the flaw in her.
Sure.
I think she is presented as an unflawed character. She is supposed to be the impassioned voice of the planet.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe you might even say in a Darren Aronofsky mother-esque role in this film.
Oh.
But I think what she's the problem with her character, in my opinion, is that she is there then for Adam McKay to make very surface level sort of remarks about sexism and things. She's a vehicle to express flaws in other people, not really to ever grow and change in herself. She's herself the entire way through the movie. She's being wronged by others around her, but I don't think that makes her an interesting character.
Right, yeah, and what to the point of her like handling or like screaming at people on national television, like it that points out the flaw that even if someone is screaming on national television about a asteroid about to hit the planet, the flaw is on the media and the people for like, I don't like her. She screamed at me. She's screaming about correct things that should be a big deal. And the flaw is on the people and the media for being like, hey, this one needs media training. Am I right?
I think the reason that you're right. She doesn't have an arc. You're right. I'm coming around to the fact that she is a flawless character in the sense of, as a viewer, we're supposed to side with essentially every one of her choices. However, I don't necessarily think that doesn't make her an interesting character because she is very different from how everyone else reacts in the film. She's the only one willing to go that distance, and she provides a contrast to, oh wait, no, it is ridiculous that no one else is reacting this way, and she should be reacting this way, and she has moments of outbursts that make a lot of sense, and I find that interesting. Whether or not it gives her a character arc is, I think, a different story, but I think she's an interesting character. No one near the level of Dr. Randall Mindy, portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio, but I still think she's an interesting foil, regardless, and she brings up interesting points in the film.
Yeah, we did get derailed from Leo there, and I want to go back to him. But since we talked about Jennifer Lawrence, that was our Jennifer Lawrence section. I do like her. I don't think any of the actors in this are particularly bad. Well, any of the good guys are particularly bad. I don't
Rob
like
Morgan's
Meryl.
very good.
Yeah, I don't like Meryl Streep or Jonah Hill, but we might get to them later. But trivia fact, little trivia here for you about Don't
Quick
Look Up.
trivia fact.
Jennifer Lawrence filmed most of her scenes with a broken tooth, and due to restrictions in place from the COVID-19 pandemic, have you heard of it, she could not get it fixed. So they fixed it with CGI. Jennifer Lawrence has a CGI tooth in this movie.
Man, the amazing powers of modern filmmaking.
I mean, hey, none of us noticed. They CGI'd that tooth nice and good.
Oh, yeah. But Leonardo DiCaprio, like I said, don't really mind any of the good guys in this movie. Obviously, you get talented performers like Leo, like J-Law, like Rob Morgan, like there's one Timothy Chalamet. I also like in this.
Sure.
We might get to him later. But yeah, Leo's good. You know, he can scream at everybody, and he sounds good. But the thing is that he really he's got the belt. He can belt. But the thing is that I think his performance is good, and writing is a different story that we addressed already. But if I wanted the good Leo performance, I could go to basically any other of his films. If I wanted a good comedic Leo performance, I could go to The Wolf of Wall Street, which is a better and more pointed critique of a more specific issue, and I don't know what word I'm looking for. It's a critique of Wall Street. You get it.
Wolf of Wall Street is a better movie, I think, is the word you're looking for.
That is exactly what I'm saying. And so
I would rather watch that movie.
My main point is that I think these people are good in the movie, but it's not a good movie, so I wouldn't rewatch it to see them.
Sure, of course.
See, I really think Leo is maybe the only one that brings a sort of life into the movie, because I agree everybody does a fine job, but I think Jonah Hill is the worst offender of delivering a fine performance, but being so ungodly, terribly written in his exchanges with people that he can't save it.
Most of that is actually improv, I believe.
Oh, Jonah.
Okay.
He apparently did come up with
or at least it's mixed.
Yeah,
Okay.
He apparently came up with the idea to carry around the Birkin bag that, according to him, has the nuclear codes inside of it.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, then never mind. Then that's not funny. Sorry, Jonah, you did a poor job. But my point is...
They're usually funny.
I think that Leo is able to bring... Leo's nervous energy that he brings and the sort of meekness that he has in those exchanges, like... My favorite is whenever Jennifer Lawrence tries to take some of the Xanax. He lets it happen, and he goes, not this time. I think that his mannerisms... Really, this is one of the only times I think the juxtaposition in the film ever works. When meek fucking astronaut I'd like to fuck Mindy comes walking into the scene, and he's like, "You are present. You are here now," and he's trying to psych himself up to do anything. I think that's clever, and I love the scene when he's in bed and he's going back and forth, and they're talking about our personal lives, and he goes, "I finally got my Star Wars poster signed by Mark Hamill." I think that
That's the most relatable moment in the entire film.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. But I think he delivers moments that would otherwise be, I think, really heavy-handed along the sort of the what's your Twitch username vein, with a level of interest that nobody else in the movie has.
Yeah,
Sure. I think the film, one of the aspects that I do enjoy about the film is its portrayal of the anxiety that the two main characters feel. They're in this unbelievably overwhelming situation, and they have, like, first of all, they know everyone's gonna die, and now they have to tell everyone that they're gonna die, and so they're just freaking out. And to me, like, the way that all of those scenes, whether they're talking to the president or whether they're gonna go on TV, those scenes I feel like come across well, and it's because of Leo's performance. I think he sells the idea that he's super freaked out and needs to, wants to really be doing anything other than what he has to do right then. And so those moments are enjoyable, I would say, for me. And I like that one representation in the film.
Yeah, I think he's really fun, and I think by connection, him and Jennifer Lawrence, I like their chemistry together. I think their bond is interesting as teacher and student that have been thrown into this situation together and have been completely divorced from their previous lives because they never returned to UC Michigan, or I don't know what the state,
Michigan State.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same.
Go Spartans.
The fact that they are so out of their element, I think, makes them fun to watch, and I think they react in believable ways. But thinking back to what you said, Abram, about the fact that this film does lose that touchstone, that humanity, because it focuses so large on the macro. I think for me, I found a kind of a fun there of going from Leonardo DiCaprio in the bathroom trying to psych himself up, or him being noivous little guy if he's going into the Oval Office, and then boom, rocketing out to the entire planet reacting to this, and there's this obviously the giant comet trying to destroy everything. I think there's a fun balance to that I think is actually kind of indicative of the balance that Adam McKay is trying to strike with this film in terms of the history of his filmography. He was a comedy guy. No one's gonna deny that. When you're on Anchorman, Talladega Nights, and Step Brothers, and then you pivot to The Big Short and Vice, he obviously has two very disparaging interests in filmmaking styles. And I think what he tries to do here is merge them. For me, it worked obviously a lot better than the rest of you guys, but I think there's an interesting interplay between the ridiculous nature of holy shit, this is a crazy comedy where the world's gonna end, and like serious, quote unquote, political satire and people reacting to these situations. I think it's pretty interesting. And Leo is definitely the nugget in the middle of all of that.
Sure. Okay.
If I may shout out one joke that really worked for me, because I think that by and large a lot of the humor beyond Leo falls very flat for me. But when because I hate Ariana Grande's shoehorned appearances in this.
As whatever her name is. She's in it so she can do a song that sucks.
Which is not a good song.
Herself.
No, it's a terrible song.
But I really actually do like the exchange. It's a really small moment, but I like the exchange when they're waiting to go on. And she says, I'm like, oh, I've got, you found an asteroid. I've got a shooting star on my back. And Leo's like, that's wonderful. And he goes, I'm really sorry to hear about your breakup. And she goes, why don't you mind your own business, you old fuck? And something about the way he recoils, I think is really effective.
Yeah, he does have a, Tucker and I noticed this, Tucker shouted it out. And when he goes, he's like, I shout out Tucker. He said, he slinks back and he goes, okay.
He's a high-shouldered idiot in the movie, which I appreciate.
Supporting cast.
Mark Rylance.
Oh.
It's interesting that he went from playing James Halliday in Ready Player One to this, who is ostensibly the same character, except for in this, he's not dying in his house all the time or whatever. But this is such an interesting one-note character. I'd say he's probably the most one-note character in the film. And it's so on the nose that I think there is comedy in it. I think that he obviously put a lot of work into getting this persona right and delivering these lines with this very strange cadence. So I think I think it shows off the skill of him as an actor to be able to get this fucking annoying. He's so obnoxious and so over the top that it almost comes full circle to me, and I kind of enjoy it.
I guess I'm stuck at the 6 o'clock position because I don't like him. As with all the villains in this, I don't think he's very funny at all. Same goes for Jonah Hill and Meryl Streep. Ron Perlman, I guess he's more of a neutral party in this. Ron Perlman's
really
funny.
He's funny.
Tucker and I agree that he's maybe the best part of this. Maybe only because he's given. You can count on one hand the number of jokes he's given.
Yeah. But almost all of them land.
Well, yeah, one of my favorites is when he's just like sort of old man rambling in the rocket on the way up, and he's like, "Hey, why don't these two why didn't you two Indians team up? That'd be pretty cool. And I'd like to give a shout out to all the gays out there." And they're
on
like,
the ground,
let's keep comms on mission. He's like, "Oh, okay, sorry."
Yeah.
And on the ground saying, yeah, he's just from a different generation.
Yeah.
Well, because he goes, I'd like to thank all the hardworking white folks out there.
Yeah. God. He's like, he's from a different generation. That's one of the running jokes that also works because it's tangential to Ron Perlman, who is good. The general taking money for snacks thing is not funny, and they don't do anything with the joke anyway. So
And
it might have been funny the first time, but then when you're at the fifth time, you're like, stop. This is what it doesn't have. This joke doesn't have enough depth for you to stretch it out for 5 repetitions.
It is the only joke that gets the through line through the whole movie. It shows up all the way to the end.
Yep.
do you guys have any favorite supporting actors in this?
I said it
Blanchett?
before. I just want to underscore how much I hate Mark Rylance's Jordan Peterson affect that he adopts for this movie.
Yeah.
I really hate that, and I just wanted that on record.
Okay, good to know.
I like Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett? Yeah, she's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Actually,
she's not playing a crazy character necessarily, but she plays that character very well. The stereotype of doesn't care about anything, just invested in being popular and being on the media and all this stuff. And I think it's fun to see her completely juxtaposed against Leonardo DiCaprio, and she's kind of the reason that he's able to be corrupted into being the lapdog for President Orlean's media team until he turns against them. But I like their connection a lot. I think she does a great job.
Yeah, she uses her feminine wiles to beckon him to the other side. I think Kate Blanchett is also good. I take back what I said. She is the one good person on the villain side.
I just shout out Leo's wife. I'm not sure what the actress's name is. But I think she does have.
She's the only human being in this movie.
She's got a couple of human moments, which I appreciate, and I think it's really funny when she's throwing here's the anxiety medication, here's the weight control pill, here's the Cialis. I think that's all great, and I love when he returns to the family dinner and she whispers in, she goes, "I fucked that guy in college," and Leo does his blinking thing. I think they've got some nice moments together that are a little bit more human.
I like Timothy Chalamet. I'll say it. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I think he's fun as like an edgy Twitch streamer, Reddit everything. The world's burning. He's the Gen Z character. The world's burning, and we're gonna skateboard or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like I'm forced to identify with him, but I think his performance is fine.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. The costume designers did a good number on him. Apparently that hair is all real. He apparently grew it out during the pandemic shutdown, and Adam McKay liked it, so he was like, "Yeah, keep it, sure." There's the fingerling potatoes line, and also I think the whole thing about him, doing the prayer at the end during the dinner scene, which I will admit is good, if not undercut by the entire world exploding immediately following.
Okay,
That's what
the
makes
reason
it
it
good.
has. Yeah, that's the reason it has emotional weight. The juxtaposition of the humanity versus the. It's a good scene on its own, but the fact that it's coming right before moments of their death, and they're just trying to have this human family moment, and then everything bursts apart. I think there's kind of an irony in that, obviously, but like sort of a beauty in the humanity of it.
If I may, I think that I know that there's a comet that's crumpling the Earth while that scene is going on, so I don't need the house to explode into a ball of flame. I get what's going. You could have cut to black and accomplished the same thing and be less overt and hitting me in the head with a baseball bat of, do you get it? The world exploded.
Well, okay.
I think the underlying doom that is not even impending. It is here. It is happening while they are having this dinner. That's what makes that scene good. The underlying thing of, we're going around the table, we're talking about mundane things, And I even think it's unnecessary to keep cutting back. If we know that the world is ending and this is the last conversation that these people will have, I think it's a good scene with the audience having that in the back of their minds. We don't need to keep cutting back to it and then show them bursting into a ball of flames at the end.
I don't know. I find in a film that I think is pretty ugly and devoid of visual interest, I find something compelling about the ways that the set is shaking as they're trying to talk about if they like the store-bought pie or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Tanner. I'm kind of take it or leave it on the window and the glass of the window exploding in slow motion behind Leonardo DiCaprio's shoulder. I think it's kind of visually poetic, but also incredibly cudgel-like, but so is the entire film, so what could I really expect? Mm-hmm. One other thing I wanted to shout out, because it's not going to fit anywhere else, one of my favorite jokes in the entire movie is when they're shopping before the fingering potatoes thing, when Leo picks up the salmon, he's like, look at this Alaskan salmon, look at this farm salmon, do you notice the color difference? I think he pulls off stuff like that really well.
The only criticism that lands in the movie, farm salmon, not very colorful.
Yeah. I feel like we're wrapping up here, so I do have one final bit of trivia that relates to Rob Morgan, who he said was good, and I think he is good. He's not given a lot of comedy in this. He's sort of just a baseline, like, I'm the NASA guy, and I'm on your side. All these other people are crazy. When President Orlean mispronounces his name and calls him Ogilvy, Ogilvy is the name of the character in The War of the Worlds who first spots the Martian invasion, which I think is clever for a moment, but then if you think about it, it doesn't make sense because he wasn't the one to notice it. If anything, she should have, Jennifer Lawrence's character should have been called Oglethorpe, and she should have mispronounced Jennifer Lawrence's name because she's the one who discovered it. But what are you gonna do? Adam McKay.
He thought for 30 whole seconds on the conceit of this film, and it shows. Should we rank it? Should we give it a score? Figure out
do we
where
need
it
to
ends
do
up on our
closing
list.
thoughts on this? We'll do closing thoughts after we score.
Let's do our closing thoughts as we close. So pull up that spreadsheet, punch in
pulling it
your
up.
numbers, figure out what am I going to give it? What am I going to give this film? I think I know what I'm going to give it. I've been thinking about it all day, and I'm ready. Do you guys have
I've
it?
got a number.
Yeah. Tucker, do you have a number?
got
I don't believe you
numbers
do.
all around?
I certainly have a number.
He's got a number.
And it's going to be much higher than yours, and you all know
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see.
All right, let's see what the number is in 3, 2, 1. And across the board, the average score is 4.7. So below half, and at number 3 place on the list right now.
Believe it or not.
The point breakdown starts with Tucker at the top as a 6.7. I gave it a 5.0. Tanner gave it a 3.5, and then Abram gave it a 3.7. So we've got a camp in the 3.5 and 7, and then spread out else from there. What are your final thoughts based off of this ranking of the film?
I mean, it makes sense. Let's be real. This wasn't going to
makes
go
sense.
anywhere else. And frankly, the only thing that's surprising about this entire recording session, and this is the only film that all 4 of us had seen before going in, I think it'll... Oh, well, we also saw Dune. The only interesting thing, the only surprising thing about any of this was that, hey, I think this is a good movie. And I'm glad I thought that, because I think it made for a more interesting conversation throughout the course of this. And my closing thoughts, which are then going to be smushed down by 3 people saying the movie's absolute shit from all directions, is that I think we're not giving this movie... I think you guys, I'm sorry to critique you, aren't giving this movie the credit that I think it deserves to a certain extent. I don't think it's a great movie. I don't think it should have been nominated for Best Picture. I think it's not subtle. I think it has weak performances. A lot of the humor doesn't land. But Adam McKay knew what he was doing. He didn't pull this out of his ass. I think a lot of work went into this to making it be... And see, that's the face that I think is not necessarily fair. There is a quality to this film that is alienating to some people, and obviously this movie is very divisive. And it's interesting that I'm somewhere in the middle, but I think the comedy is strong here for a lot of it. I actually found myself laughing quite a lot last night, and whenever I would laugh, I would look over at Tanner and be kind of embarrassed. I'm like, uh-oh, Tanner doesn't like this movie. It's bad that I'm laughing. But the performances are good across the board. I think the idea of it being so large scale is actually pretty interesting and different for a lot of films. We're so used to getting tight-knit human stories, which of course I love, but I think there is an intrigue to the death of the world. How is the entire world reacting to it? And the thematic idea that everyone has a part to play in the craziness of the world, and that this can be transferred to a lot of different concepts is very interesting. And I think even if it doesn't age well, it exists as a capsule in time. And as a person of this time, watching it in this time, it has a lot of current value, I think. And I'm very glad I rewatched it because I gleaned a lot more out of it.
For me, my middle 5.0 score reflects my thoughts that while the film really misses a lot with the criticism, I think that I am glad that it at least tries. I think that it doesn't actively harm like another film that we reviewed on Quest did, the bottom film on our list. I think Crash as an actively harmful film for what it's against what it's trying to do. This one, I mean, even if it doesn't make you think deeply about this kind of stuff, it does make you think about it a little bit. And while I disagree with pretty much most of the presentation of it, I at least recognize that it's there and it stands out a little bit. It's also like, is it the biggest blockbuster on our list? Maybe not.
No.
Maybe
Dune.
Dune eclipses it. So it's a much bigger film than we normally get in. Not normally, but it's out of all the Best Picture nominees, it's maybe one of the biggest. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, not a lot to not like about it. And I think that besides from the editing, the fundamentals are all there. I mean, it's a modern Best Picture winner. It's not like it's poorly made, maybe just misguidedly made.
Sure, yeah.
For me, I just can't excuse the way that it's written and conceptualized. I think that it is an ill-conceived and incredibly neoliberal approach to criticism that feels like the equivalent of scrolling your Twitter Explore page in one hand while you sip your Starbucks drink out of a paper straw that won't kill the turtles in the other. I think that it is pointed incorrectly, and I think that it has nothing useful to say. But if we were to have done this review back in December, as we almost did, I would have given the film half the score I gave it this time. Because I do think that in spite of my blatant issues with the writing and with the style of the film, neither of which I think work nearly at all in my opinion, I do think that there is a fun to the A-plot of the movie that I didn't catch that first time. I think Leo is fun. I think that the ensemble does the best with what they're given, and it's very watchable. There are a lot of Best Pictures that I think are not very watchable, that I can tune out of very easily. You can't tune out of this one, for better and for worse, I think, but I can't even get into the fours for me with this one.
I think what I go back to is sort of my opening statement at the beginning, is that I think there are things about this movie that are good or even passable or even good that are in the Oort cloud of this film. But at its heart, it is very, very clear what this film is supposed to be about. And you can get different readings from that, and you can look at it as just a straight comedy about, hey, how wacky the world is. But I think it's beating you over the head with what it's about, so I find it hard to ignore that when reviewing the film, especially when the central theme, the central reason why the film was made, and why Leonardo DiCaprio took this part, quite honestly, because he's a big climate change activist, is so. I think it is lazy, as I laid out in whatever the 35 minutes that we did on the central theme of this, the climate change stuff. I think it is lazy. I think Adam McKay misunderstands the very issue that is at the heart of this film in making it a big issue that is going to happen once, and we just all need to look up at it, and that'll solve it or whatever. I think it's extremely misguided. It is lazy. I think Adam McKay didn't know what he was really doing with that particular theme. And if you know what, and Tucker, to address you specifically, I don't think you should have to feel ashamed if you thought this movie was funny. Don't let my disdain for it impact your watching of it. Yeah. And a lot of people also like this movie, so I think that there is a conversation to be had about it and how I feel it. If I were in that conversation, I would present how I think it mishandles the theme that it's very clearly about, and how a lot of the other aspects fall short for me due to that, and even divorced from it in some aspects, because I just don't think Meryl Streep and Jonah Hill or Mark Rylance are very funny in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, Don't Look Up. You know, I hope Adam McKay is doing that Lakers show, and I think that's I like Adam McKay by and large. I think he just made a stinker here because he tried to. I think he's too far up on his high horse, and he's like, what if I did a movie that's just like about everything, huh?
You see? I
The
did
Lakers
see-
show looks good though.
I think the
watch that
Lakers show looks good. I mean, I think I think his style will be much better suited for that.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. I agree.
All right.
But yeah.
Well, that's
The problem is that it's TV though. That's really.
Oh, McKay failed to consider this.
Don't look up this movie.
Oh, a nice, Abrams.
Zinger to end on.
If we're in the mood for condemning comedy in this review, and that was a bad joke.
I liked it.
And you
well, you like
Tucker.
this movie, Tucker.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Amos
See,
Dinner
he-
written
see,
by
he
Adam
bur- he-
McKay.
Timo burned you, and I welcomed your opinion, Tucker. You see.
That's the difference. That's what you get when you're roommates. You just friendly, fraternal bond of living together. Tanner, what movie are we going to be talking about next time?
Boy howdy, as penance for making me watch my least favorite movie, one of my least favorite movies of the year, and certainly my least favorite Best Picture nominee for this year, we are watching my favorite Best Picture nominee of this year, and one of my favorite movies of the year. No, Abram, not Dune, not one of the most okay, goodish movies of the year. We're watching one of my faves. We're watching Coda. I really, really enjoyed this film. I watched it a couple months back. I think it's a nice little heartfelt piece, and it's on Apple Plus TV. If you think if anyone has that streaming service, go ahead and load that baby up. Maybe sucker Apple out of a free trial to watch this because it's worth it, quite honestly.
Okay.
It's worth suckering Apple out of a free trial.
Yeah, absolutely. Additional shout out, Troy Kotzer from this movie liked one of my tweets once, so...
So what you're saying is you're gonna have to recuse yourself from this review because you will be too biased.
I'm biased? Oh, no.
I am really looking forward to watching this one and hearing all of y'all's thoughts about it. Like this discussion of Don't Look Up, it's I'm glad we got into it because it's certainly true that this is a decisive movie and it's only
Divisive.
right that we let forth our unbridled opinions about it. That's kind of the name of the game around here, I think, though. So we'll keep it up for next time when we're talking about Coda. Can't wait to watch it and talk about it. We'll see you then. Peace.
Give me an Oscar, you motherfuckers. I'm talking the Academy of Motion Arts and Pictures.